Deji, it's me. I did it. I finally did the last one. The surgeon says
Welcome
it
to the
healed
new
perfectly.
North Wing.
You won't even recognize me. I look exactly like the girls you always said were... Deji, say something.
Dami, listen, I was going to call you this week anyway. There's no easy way to say this, so I will just say it. I am getting married. Next month. To Simi Coker.
What? Married? To... No. No, Deji, I did all of this for you. Everything. My business, my
How can you
savings,
stand there
the
so
loans,
calmly after
my
what you-
face, my body. I changed everything you ever said you didn't like. I became exactly what you wanted.
I have been loyal to this
How can
family,
you
and
marry
you treat me-
someone else?
And that right there, Dami, is the problem. You changed everything, and you still didn't understand a single thing. It was never about your face. Take care of yourself. Simi's people are calling. I have to go.
And the line went dead, and Damilola Bello sat down slowly on the edge of a bed in a recovery clinic in Lekki, her face still tender under the bandages from the last surgery she would ever be able to afford, the surgery she had taken her final loan to pay for, and she understood, all at once, too late, in one crashing wave, that she had spent everything she owned and everything she was, buying a thing that had never, ever been for sale. My people, come closer and sit down, because this is a story that will make some of you angry and some of you weep, and I need you to hear all of it before you decide which. Because before we talk about the wedding, we must first talk about what was built, and about who told a beautiful woman she was ugly, and why. Damilola Bello, Dami, everyone called her, was, and I want you to hear this from the very beginning because the whole story turns on it, a beautiful young woman. Not beautiful for anything, just beautiful, in the ordinary real way that most people are beautiful before someone teaches them they are not. She had her mother's wide warm face and her father's easy laugh, dark skin that caught the light, a gap in her teeth that made her whole face open up when she smiled. In her village, in her family, in her own mirror as a girl, Dami had never once thought about whether she was enough. She simply was. And she was more than a face, my people, though the world she was about to enter would try to reduce her to one. Dami was a builder. With her own hands and a small loan, she had started a little natural skincare business. Shea butter, black soap, oils, the old recipes made carefully and sold in clean little jars, and she was good at it. She had a gift, in fact, for making other women feel beautiful. That was her whole trade. Women would come to her stall in Lagos tired and worn down, and leave glowing, not just because of the cream, but because of the way Dami looked at them, really looked, and found the thing about each of them that was lovely, and named it out loud. She spent her days telling women they were beautiful and meaning it, and she was building something real, one jar at a time. Hold that, my people, because it is the cruelest irony in this whole story, and I do not want you to miss it. The woman who was about to be convinced that she was not beautiful enough to be loved spent her days convincing other women that they were. Let me give you one afternoon from that stall, my people, so you know exactly what the world was about to try to break. A young woman came once, a bank clerk, shoulders hunched, who would not meet Dami's eyes, and who mumbled that she wanted
something to make her skin lighter, so her fiancé's family would accept her.
And Dami, this is the Dami that existed before Deji, the one worth mourning. Dami put down the jar and took the young woman's hands and said,
Sit. Before I sell you anything, I want you to hear me. Your skin is not a problem to be corrected. It is the most beautiful brown, like wet earth after the first rain. And any family that cannot see that is telling you about their own blindness, not about your face.
And she watched that hunched young woman slowly sit up straight for perhaps the first time in months, and leave with her chin lifted and a jar of honest shea butter and something far more valuable that Dami had given her for free. That was the gift, my people. That was the whole soul of her. She could see the beauty the world had taught a person to overlook and name it back to them until they believed it. Remember that she once did this so easily for strangers, because the great cruelty coming for her is that she was about to lose the power to do it for herself. Then she met Deji Aluko. Deji was, on the surface, everything a certain kind of Lagos dreams about. The clothes, the watch, the right parties, the right sections of Instagram, the soft life performed daily for an audience. He drove a car that suggested a wealth the bank statements behind it did not support, but Dami did not know that yet, and neither did most of the people watching. Deji was a professional at one thing above all others, appearing. And when this appearing young man turned the full warmth of his attention on Dami, a girl who built skincare from a stall, she felt, as anyone would, chosen, lifted, special. For the first months, it was sweet, but slowly, my people. And it is always slowly, because if it came all at once, you would run. Slowly, Deji began to teach Dami a new language, the language of not enough. It was never cruel on the surface. That is the thing about this particular poison. It comes wrapped as concern, as ambition, as I'm only saying this because I want the best for us. He would look at a fair-skinned, surgically sculpted socialite gliding through a party and murmur,
You see how she carries herself? That's the level, Dami. That's where I'm going.
He would flick past photos of a certain kind of woman, the manufactured kind, the kind the internet had decided was the standard, and say lightly,
Your nose, if it was just a little more like that.
He would introduce her to his circle, and then, in the car afterward, be quiet in a way that said everything, and when she asked what was wrong, he would sigh and say,
Nothing, it's just, my people expect a certain kind of wife, an image. You understand, you could get there. You just have to be willing to invest in yourself.
Invest in yourself. My people hear how that phrase works. It takes the cruelty out of his mouth and puts the fault into her body. He was not saying, I don't value you. He was saying, you have not yet finished becoming valuable, but you could if you spend enough. And a woman who loves a man and who has been told, gently, expensively, again and again, that she is a project not yet complete, that woman does not hear an insult. She hears a to-do list. She hears hope. She thinks, he has not rejected me. He has shown me the way to be chosen. I only have to walk it. And there was a whole world, my people, standing ready to sell her the paving stones for that road. Because Deji did not invent the standard he held over Dami's head, he only pointed at it. The standard was already everywhere, glowing out of every screen she held, the same manufactured face repeated 10,000 times until it started to look like the only face, the same impossible shape, filtered, edited, injected, surgically built, and then presented to millions of ordinary women as the ordinary minimum. A shape, my people, that in many cases does not exist on any living body at all, that began its life inside an app, as a set of adjustments a machine makes to a photograph, and was then carried out of the screen and cut into real flesh by real knives, so that living women could chase a thing that was never alive. This is the water we all swim in now, and Dami swam in it too, and so when the man she loved pointed at that glowing false standard and said,
You could get there.
It did not sound like madness. It sounded like the world. Everyone around her was already whispering the same thing. He was only the voice that made it personal. If you have ever been made to feel like a rough draft of a person somebody would love once you were finally edited enough, type not enough in the comments, because that is the exact wound Deji opened in Dami, patiently, over many months, and it is a wound that does not bleed where anyone can see it, and it is the deepest wound one human being can give another. To take a whole person and convince them they are a problem to be solved, and so Dami began to spend. She started small, the way it always starts, a procedure here, a small adjustment there. And each time, for a few weeks, Deji was warmer, and the warmth was a drug, and the drug wore off, and the next thing on the list appeared. The nose, then the skin, the creams she would once have been ashamed to sell in her own shop, the ones that promised to make dark skin lighter, the ones she knew as a skincare woman were poison, she now smeared on her own body in the dark because Deji had let it slip that
Lighter babes just photograph better.
Then the body, the contouring, the surgery that is sold as a shortcut and is in truth a serious operation with serious risk, the kind young women in this city are quietly dying from, my people, on the tables of unlicensed men, chasing a shape that an app invented. And it cost. God, how it cost, not just the pain, though there was pain. The money. First her savings, years of 1 jar at a time savings, gone. Then the business itself. She stopped reinvesting in it, stopped restocking, let her little glowing empire wither on its stall, because every naira now went to the surgeon instead of the she-butter. Then the loans. She borrowed against a business she was no longer feeding, from cooperatives, from friends, at last from the kind of lender you should never borrow from, all of it poured onto an operating table, all of it to become the woman a man had told her he would finally, fully love once she was someone else. She was, by the end, deep in debt, her business a shell, her face and body remade into an approximation of a standard she had been taught to worship, exhausted, in pain, and, this is the part that should break your heart, my people, proud. Proud on that last day in the recovery clinic, because she thought she had finally done it. She thought she had finally become enough. She lifted the phone to call the man she had rebuilt herself for, to tell him the project was complete, and he told her he was marrying Simi Coker. Now, my people, here is the first turn, and it is the one that took Dami longest to see, because it is the one designed never to be seen. Simi Coker was not more beautiful than Dami. I want to be very clear about that, because Dami spent weeks torturing herself with the question, what does she have that I spent everything to get? And the answer, when Dami finally forced herself to look at it, was not a face. It was not a nose or a shape or a shade of skin. Simi Coker had a father named Chief Coker, and Chief Coker had money and contracts, and a name that opened doors, and that, my people, and only that, was the entire dowry Deji Aluko had been shopping for the whole time. Do you understand now? It was never about Dami's looks. It was never, for one single day, about her nose or her skin or her body. Deji Aluko had always intended to marry money, to marry up, to marry the soft life he performed but could not afford, and Dami, a skincare girl from a stall, was never in the running for that prize and never could have been, no matter how many surgeons she paid. So why then, and here is where the cruelty becomes something colder than cruelty, why did he keep her? Why the years, the murmured lists, the invest in yourself, the patient teaching of the language of not enough? Because Dami was useful. Because a woman who believes she is a project not yet complete is a woman who keeps trying, keeps giving, keeps paying. And Deji, my people, whose glittering image cost far more than he had, took from Dami far more than her heart. He borrowed from her. He let her invest in the two of them, a deposit here, a bailout there, an image to maintain, appearances that were not cheap. The big boy life that eventually made him presentable enough to be considered by the Cokers at all, a good portion of it in those lean years, was quietly financed by a skincare girl emptying her savings and her business and her body onto the altar of a love she thought she was earning. He did not string her along in spite of her ruin. He strung her along because of what her ruin was paying for. The flaws he kept pointing at were never obstacles he wanted her to fix. They were a treadmill he needed her to keep running on, so that she would keep chasing and keep giving, and never once stop long enough to ask the only question that mattered.
Deji, do you actually love me, or am I paying for something?
She never asked it, until the line went dead in a recovery clinic in Lekki. If a person has ever kept you close not because they valued you, but because your trying to earn them was profitable to them, type the treadmill in the comments, because that is the most modern and the most ancient con there is, and Dami had been running on it for 3 years, buying speed she thought was progress, and getting nowhere on purpose. The wedding was, my people, everything you would expect. The Cokers spared nothing. A Lagos society wedding is its own kind of coronation, and Deji Aluko stood at the center of it in white and gold, smiling the smile of a man who has finally arrived, having climbed to the top of the only ladder he ever cared about, the one that led into a rich man's family. And somewhere across the city, a woman he had bankrupted sat in a small flat, healing from a surgery she had taken a loan she could not repay to pay for, and watched the photographs spread across the same Instagram that had taught her she was not enough, and felt something in her that she could not yet name, but that was not quite only grief. But here, my people, is the second turn, and it is the one the universe wrote, not Dami, because Dami, understand, did nothing to him. She did not curse him, did not expose him, did not lift one finger for revenge. She was too broken at first, even to want it. No. What came for Deji Aluko came from the exact place he had run to, from the prize itself. Because a man who marries money, my people, does not get money. He gets an owner. Deji had spent his whole life performing wealth to escape the shame of not having it, and he married into the Coker family, believing he was finally crossing over, finally becoming one of the richy, and he discovered, the way such men always discover, far too late, that he had not joined them. He had been acquired by them. In the Coker household, Deji was not a husband. He was a poor relation on permanent probation. The money was Chief Coker's, and it stayed Chief Coker's, doled out and withheld, a leash disguised as generosity. Simi, raised to know exactly what her family's money was worth, and exactly how little the man it had purchased was worth beside it, did not look at Deji the way Dami once had. She looked at him the way you look at something you own that is not performing quite as advertised. And the family, the aunties, the in-laws, the whole watching clan, made it their quiet daily work to remind Deji, in 1,000 small ways, of where he had come from and what he was without them. My people, sit with the shape of this. Deji Aluko spent 3 years teaching a good woman the language of not enough, the murmured comparison, the disappointed silence, the "you could get there if you invested." And then he married into a family that spoke that exact language, fluently, natively, and turned it on him, every single day, for the rest of his life. The disappointed silences were now aimed at him. The "you're not quite at the level" was now his to swallow. The performing, the anxious, trying to be enough for people who had already decided you were not. The very treadmill he had strapped Dami to, he now ran on it himself, in a mansion, forever, and there was no getting off because he had signed for the cage himself and called it a wedding. He got the soft life, and the soft life turned out to be a very comfortable prison in which he was the one at last who was never enough. That, my people, is a justice no court could have designed and no enemy could have delivered. It came from inside the very thing he wanted. Be careful what you sell yourself for. You so often get it, and then you have to live inside it. And there is a deeper lesson buried in Deji's cage, my people, one worth carrying out of this story, even if you forget everything else. A person who teaches others the language of not enough is almost always fluent in it, because it was first spoken over them. Cruelty like Deji's does not come from strength. It comes from a bottomless, hidden hunger to be enough that he could never fill, and so he did what the starving sometimes do. He tried to feel full by making someone else feel empty. He shamed Dami's face because he was ashamed of his own empty pockets. He built her a treadmill of not enough because he was already running on one of his own, in secret, terrified every day that the world would see what he really was. And when he married into the Cokers, he did not escape that treadmill. He simply moved it into a bigger house with more people to watch him run. The cruel, my people, are rarely happy people who choose to wound. They are almost always wounded people who never healed, passing the wound along. It does not excuse them. But it explains why the punishment that finally finds them so often looks exactly like the thing they were running from the whole time. Now let me tell you about Dami, because this is her story, not his, and the best part of it has nothing to do with him at all. For a long while, my people, she was simply broken. I will not dress it up for you, because there are young women listening tonight who are in exactly that place, and they deserve the truth and not a fairy tale. Dami hit the bottom, and the bottom was hard. The debt was real, and the lenders were not gentle. Her business was a ghost. Her body ached from operations she now had to live inside forever, whether she liked the result or not. And worst of all was the thing no surgeon had touched and no money could reach, the belief driven into her over 3 patient years that she was, at her core, not enough. That belief did not leave when Deji did. It stayed. It looked back at her out of the mirror she could barely stand to face. And in that pit, my people, 2 people reached down for her. And I want you to notice who they were, because it is always, always the same kind of person, and never the kind the world tells you to chase. The first was her mother. Mama Bello, a plain woman from a plain place, who had never in her life understood Lagos or Instagram or The Level, came and sat with her ruined, weeping daughter, and she did not say, "Why did you do this to yourself?" She said one thing over and over, in the voice she had used over Dami's cradle.
My daughter, I knew you before all of this. I knew you when you were 3 days old and you were perfect. I knew you at 7, running in the yard, and you were perfect. I knew you at 19, before that man ever looked at you, and you were perfect. Nothing a doctor did to you added 1 grain to what you already were, and nothing that boy said took 1 grain away. He did not have the power. Only you gave him the power, and only you can take it back. You were always enough, Dami. The tragedy is not your face. The tragedy is that a liar made you forget a thing your mother always knew.
My people, I want you to hear that, Mother, because there is medicine in her words for more than just Dami. Notice that she did not tell her daughter she was beautiful in order to fix her. She told her she had always been beautiful, before the man, before the knife, before the very idea that she needed fixing was ever planted in her. That is the difference between love and the thing Deji offered, and it is the whole difference in the world. Deji's version said, "You will be enough when." The mother's version said, "You were always enough, full stop," and the when was the lie. And that, I think, is how you tell true love from its counterfeit, every single time, in any language, in any country where this story finds you tonight. True love says you are enough now. The counterfeit says you will be enough when, and the when keeps moving, my people. It always keeps moving, because the moving is the whole trap. The second was her friend Ngozi, blunt, loud, faithful Ngozi, who had told Dami the truth about Deji from the very first month and been shut out for it, and who now, when Dami crept back ashamed, did not say 1 word of "I told you so," because real friends, my people, do not charge interest on being right. Ngozi simply rolled up her sleeves and said,
"Okay, he's gone, the money's gone, and crying is free, but it won't restock your shelves. So, what did you have before him that was actually yours? Not the face. The other thing. The thing you were good at. Let's start there. Get up."
The thing she was good at. My people, do you remember what it was? Before Deji, before the treadmill, before the language of not enough, Dami had a gift for making other women feel beautiful. She had a real business, a real skill, a real thing she built with her own hands, and that, not a new face, not a new man, not a rescue from the sky, that was the ladder out of the pit, not given to her, remembered, rebuilt. She started again exactly the way she had started the first time, small, 1 jar at a time. She could not pay off the debt in a month, and this story will not insult you by pretending she could. She paid it the way real people pay real debts, slowly, painfully, over years, one honest sale on top of another. She went back to her old recipes, the shea butter and the black soap and the oils, the real ones, the ones that healed instead of the ones that promised. And something had changed in her, my people, something the whole ordeal had, against all odds, given her, because now, when a tired, worn-down woman came to Dami's stall, believing she was not beautiful, Dami did not just sell her a cream. Dami looked at her, really looked, the way her own mother had looked at her in the pit, and she said, with the whole authority of someone who had walked all the way into that lie and back out again,
Listen to me. Whatever they told you that you need to fix, they were selling you something. You do not have a flaw. You have a person who profited from you thinking you did. Now let me show you how to care for the skin you already have, not the skin somebody shamed you into wanting.
Her business did not just recover, my people, It became something it had never been before, because Dami had a message now, a true one, bought at the highest possible price, and she built her whole brand around it. Real skin, real women, real beauty that is discovered and not purchased. She spoke, quietly at first and then not quietly at all, about the manufactured standard, the invest in yourself, the language of not enough. She spoke about the darker thing too, the thing this city does not like to discuss. The young women dying quietly on the tables of unlicensed men, chasing a shape an app invented, and she told them the truth she had nearly paid for with her life, that no one who truly loves you will ever hand you a bill for it. Young women began to find her, not for a cream, for the thing behind the cream, for a woman who had been all the way down the road they were standing at the start of and had come back to wave them off it. There was one girl in particular, my people, that Dami always spoke of afterward, a 19-year-old, bright and frightened, who came to the stall with a phone full of before pictures and a plan to borrow money for the very same body surgery that had nearly emptied Dami onto a table 2 years earlier, because a boy had told her she would be wife material once she fixed her shape. And Dami sat that girl down for 2 hours. She did not lecture her. She simply told her own story, all of it, the loans, the pain, the man who married someone else, the mirror she could barely face, and then she said,
I am not going to tell you what to do with your own body. It is yours, and that is exactly the point. It is yours. I am only going to ask you one question, and I want you to carry it home. If this boy needs you to be cut open and rebuilt before he can call you enough, what is he going to need next year when the new shape stops being exciting? Because a man who loves a moving target, my daughter, will keep the target moving forever, so that you never stop running and he never has to choose you.
And that girl went home, and she did not take the loan, and she did not do the surgery, and 2 years later she came back, not with a new body, but with a small business of her own and a man who had wanted her as she was all along. She told Dami,
You saved my life. You literally saved my life.
And Dami wept, because she knew it was true in the most literal way, and because saving that one girl was the first time she understood that the price she had paid had not been entirely wasted, that God, or life, or whatever you call it, my people, has a way of letting even our deepest ruin become somebody else's rescue if we are willing to turn our scars outward and use them as a lamp. If you have ever had to climb out of a pit someone else dug for you, with no rescue, no shortcut, just your own 2 hands and the few good people who refuse to let go of you, type 1 jar at a time in the comments, because that is how Dami did it. And there is more dignity in that slow climb than in any soft life ever performed on any screen. And her face, my people, her body, remade for a man who married someone else? I will tell you the truest and hardest part, because it is the part that heals people, and I did not tell this story to comfort you with a lie. Dami could not undo it. The surgeries were permanent. The money was gone. There was no magic mirror that gave her back the face she was born with. What she got back was not her old face. It was something better and harder. She made peace with the one she had, slowly, my people, not in a day. But she learned at last to look at herself the way she had always looked at her customers, to find the thing that was lovely and name it, out loud, to the woman in the glass. She stopped seeing a project. She started seeing a person. And on the day she could look in the mirror and think, not, am I enough now, but simply, there I am. On that day, my people, she was finally completely free of Deji Aluko, in a way that no wedding of his and no cage of his could ever touch. He had married an owner and a lifetime of proving himself. She had married no one and become at last her own. She did not forget the 2 who reached into the pit. Her mother, Mama Bello, spent her last years in comfort and in pride, in a small, good house her daughter's honest business paid for, and Dami never again let a day pass without telling her mother she was beautiful, because she had learned the hard way what it cost to go without hearing it. And Ngozi, Blunt, faithful Ngozi became Dami's partner in the growing business, because a friend who tells you the truth when the truth is unwelcome and then helps you rebuild without once saying, "I told you so," is not a friend, my people. She is family, and she is rarer than any diamond, and Dami knew exactly what she held. If this story reached somewhere real in you tonight, if you have ever been made to feel like a rough draft of a person, or spent yourself trying to earn a love that was never for sale, or looked in a mirror and heard someone else's cruel voice instead of your own, then do not leave this family without joining it first. Subscribe now, so the next story finds you the very night it lands. And tell me, in the comments, what city, what country is this story reaching you in tonight? From Lagos to London, from Accra to Atlanta, from Nairobi to New York, from Lekki to Leeds, I want to see just how far this one has traveled. And do not go yet, because there is already another story waiting for you, right there on your screen, right now. Another soul someone tried to convince was not enough. Another price paid for a thing that should always have been free, because here is the truth I want you to carry home with you tonight, longer than any name in this story. No knife a surgeon holds can add to you the one thing a cruel person convinced you that you were missing, because you were never missing it. It was only hidden from you deliberately by someone who profited from your search. Anyone who hands you a bill for their love has just told you in the plainest possible language that what they are offering was never love at all, because real love, my people, arrives already paid for. It does not send an invoice. It does not give you a to-do list of yourself to complete before you qualify. And if a person can only love the version of you that costs you everything to become, then it was never you they wanted, it was only the paying. Until next time, my people, guard your sense of your own worth as if your life depends on it, because one day it just might. Never let anyone teach you the language of not enough. And remember always that the most expensive thing you will ever buy is the belief that you needed to be someone other than who you already are.